Now that we have discussed how technology diffuses, we need to explore where it comes from. Although I have been a research scientist most of my life, I personally believe you do not need to be a PhD scientist like me, or even a technical professional, to use or manage research and development teams as a source of new product, new process, or service innovation. Quite the opposite, I think it is an advantage if you are not a scientist. If you are not a scientist, you focus on opportunity and find the right science to make it happen. Scientists often seem to be less focused on opportunity and more driven by progressing the scientific field or the intellectual challenges a scientific career offers. I do think it is important to recognise where science is generated, how and why it is generated. You can then use scientific developments to build the technical solutions to deliver the product, process, or service innovations that are going to form the core proposition for your technology business. I would now like to discuss in a bit more detail how the external environment influences the development of new technology and new product innovation. Understanding these drivers is critical because they both catalyse opportunity and the technology development activities that will produce the new product or service innovation that you can use to deliver that opportunity. So what drives change? There are three main drivers of technology opportunity. Technological change. This is the emergence of technologies that have some performance advantage over the previous incremental development or paradigm. For this to work, you have to find an application to exploit in a way that solves a real customer problem. And this is not that easy. Building a business around technology alone is a risky and difficult proposition. Political and regulatory change, where new government policies, for example, a push towards renewable energy, are deliberate incentives by the government to get companies to enter that technology arena. It could also be that new legislation creates problems for existing companies that you can then use technology to solve. Societal change. The third change is in society, where people's attitudes or behaviours are changing, and you can provide a technology solution to help them adapt to the new social situation. Most opportunities involve a convergence of two and often all three of these factors combined to create both the opportunity and the technology solution. If technology performance is dramatically improving, it usually enables you to perform a task or solve a problem that you could not do before, or you can now do more efficiently or effectively. Technology can often involve real breakthroughs in fundamental science, but have no current practical application. Graphene and Buckminster fullerene, two completely new forms of carbon discovered late in the 20th century, both have won their inventors Nobel Prizes in chemistry and physics, but both are only starting to find any practical application, let alone mass market penetration. In contrast, technology advancements in silicon processing technology has an almost immediate effect, as the products and infrastructure are there and ready to exploit it in faster computers and more powerful software applications. Technology, no matter how smart or how inventive, is useless without a practical application. It often needs other parallel advancements in secondary complementary technologies to make it something that has practical use. There are three things to consider when studying technological change. First, the magnitude of the change. Just how much has the new invention improved the technology performance? Second, the potential application of the change. Just how much practical application exists to take advantage of that new scientific development? Finally, consider its commercial viability. Can you make significant profit by making products or services from this new technology? The problem with taking advantage of technology evolution is that it is very complex. It usually involves a complex mix of technological developments that come together to solve the problem and create the business opportunity. One of the tricks you need to learn is how to spot and assemble unrelated technological advances into convergent technical solutions to current problems. A convergence of technologies that come together to produce a radical improvement in product, process, or service performance. Most of my innovation has had some political or regulatory activity as the catalyst for change. Not by providing subsidies for new technology invention, which is the bandwagon that many people jump on. Most of my innovation has come from external regulation, making business more complicated, and I was able to use technology to circumvent that legislation. Political or regulatory change was a common catalyst for most of my technology innovations. It can spur competition in a good way or a bad way by either reducing barriers to competition in a particular arena or increasing them for some firms but not for others. For example, the European Union stands against genetically modified foods. This has really made the European food market a place that many successful US food companies cannot compete in because of the nature of their products. Deregulation is usually good because it can provide access to resources or infrastructure that business can be built upon. Just think of 3G, 4G, 5G, broadband, superfast broadband. They were all driven by changes in regulation. On the flip side, deregulation can also be bad. Mobile phones took years to take off in the US because it was initially a regulatory mess. Contracts were awarded state by state. There was simply no incentive to have a device that did not work when you travelled, which was the whole point of having a mobile phone in the first place. There is a great example in Scott Shane's textbook, Technology Strategy for Managers and Entrepreneurs. US regulation created two separate markets for child safety seats by stipulating they had to be secured in different places in different types of vehicles. If you investigate this in more detail, you will find that the situation is even more complicated than that. Legislation is different on a state-by-state basis. This is very complicated territory for someone who wants to build a product in a US-wide marketplace. Any time regulation is created or changed, it provides an opportunity for new products or services to be created. Web design companies were the recipients of real profit windfall in the UK when the UK government brought in legislation to make sure websites were accessible to individuals with poor vision. Websites were required to have text embedded on images so that they could be accessible for blind people. Text can be converted by speech synthesis software. Pictures cannot. They need to be codified into text first. That legislation required businesses to rebuild their websites to become compliant with the new legislation, creating a great windfall for web design companies. Disabled access legislation in the UK required businesses to literally rebuild their premises. Just think of all the opportunities health and safety consultancies, architects, surveyors, building companies had from just one simple change in legislation that required businesses to make their premises more accessible to disabled people. The latest European Union legislation that is having a huge impact is Global Data Protection Regulations, GDPR. Every business is impacted by this, and I get emails daily from firms offering their services to help me deal with it. Many of my opportunities had their origins from changes in European Union legislation over product composition and testing. You need to be continually watching for these legislative changes and exploit them when they happen. Societal change. Society is changing faster than ever. I think this is the form of market pull that is creating opportunities every day. Again, you need to spot these changes, anticipate them, and think about how to exploit them. It is people's desire for everything on demand that could drive an educational revolution. I'm trying to exploit this as fast as I possibly can. I'm placing a bet that being the fastest to be able to deliver on-demand packaged education could obsolete many existing educational institutions. Tailored education for the older generation to stop them getting bored during longer periods of retirement. Companies like Rosetta Stone are exploiting social changes and setting a trend we all need to analyse and follow. There is clearly a market in high-quality, on-demand educational products. Social trends, demographic trends, changes in perception all create opportunity if you can find them and exploit them. Perhaps the best example of social and demographic change is social media and its subsequent impact on how we source information and entertainment. It is people's social behaviour and needs that are driving this. A basic need to interact that has always been there. Busier lives, meaning we all want all of our information and entertainment on demand rather than to someone else's schedule. Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, each interacting with a different demographic. Twitter is more adult-orientated, Facebook more dominated by the younger generation, and YouTube for education and entertainment on demand. All of these are built upon changes in social and demographic factors. The technology is an enabling solution and nothing more. I just want to finish off by reinforcing that it is generally a combination of factors that creates opportunity and technology innovation. The biggest scientific innovations seem to occur at the intersection of different scientific disciplines. When you exploit a combination of political, social, and technological change together, you can win, and you can win big.